Time. So in a minute I'll be there. Time. So in a minute I'll be there.
We're having the same sort of reverb effect or echo.
Okay, I'm ready for you now.
Okay.
So go over to you now, President.
Okay, thank you. Fellow Kiwanians and guests, this meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is hereby called to order. I now invite everyone to stand for the playing of the national anthem.
Okay, President.
Thank you. DP Desmond Batchelor will lead us in the objects of Kiwanis International.
Good evening, everyone, and fellow Kiwanians. Please join me in reaffirming the objects of Kiwanis International. To give primacy to the human and spiritual rather than to the material values of life. To encourage the daily living of the Golden Rule in all human relationships. To promote the adoption and application of higher social, business, and professional standards. To develop by precept and example a more intelligent, aggressive, and serviceable citizenship. To provide through Kiwanis clubs a practical means to form enduring friendships, to render altruistic service, and to build better communities. To cooperate in creating and maintaining that sound public opinion and high idealism which make possible the increase of righteousness, justice, patriotism, and goodwill. Thank you, President.
Thank you. DP Marcel Boyce will now bring the invocation. Over to you, DP Marcel.
Thank you, President. As we acknowledge the presence of Almighty God, let us pray. Father, we thank you that once again, through your blessings, we can meet in this fashion. We know, God Almighty, when we put our faith and trust in you, nothing is impossible. We thank you that despite the challenges of the times with the pandemic and other challenges, you have kept us in good order. We acknowledge and we recognize that even the recent staging of successful championship event, Boys and Girls Championship, is testimony to faith and trust in you. Many prayers went up for this event, and we know if it was not your will, it would not have happened. So we thank you and we going forward, we will continue to put you at the forefront, as we will in the discussion this evening. We trust that all that we discuss, all that we examine and look at this evening will bring recognition to you and will be pleasing to you. We thank you for those persons who are joining us, who are experts in the field, and we look forward, under your guidance, to a successful and a blessed meeting. We offer these prayers through our Son, your Son, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. This evening, we have a very excellent lineup of presenters, but we have a segment for the introduction. So in my opening remarks, I just say that we recently had our Canada and Eastern Caribbean conference and elections. So there are new international trustee designates, new governor designate, and a number of other new persons to assume leadership in the coming year. We too have had our elections, and we look forward to supporting those new leaders when they ascend to the various offices in due course. At this time, I invite our President-elect, Paul Pierre, to bring the welcome and introduction of members and visiting clubs. Over to you, President-elect designate.
Thank you very much, President Richard. Welcome to all that are here with us on our another regular Tuesday meeting. Of course, we have an interesting discussion ahead. Special welcome to Mr. Herbert Lawrence, Dr. Cloyd Morrison, Mr. Bruce James, and Mr. Oliver Harris. Of course, you'll be appropriately introduced when the timer approaches. I'm going to ask that visiting clubs that are here with us, if you could introduce your delegation, but of course, we'll be in the order of those clubs that are visiting outside of Jamaica first. Are there any clubs that are outside of Jamaica visiting with us?
Surely.
If not, we'll go to clubs that are visiting. We'll go to clubs that are visiting within Division 25. Are there any clubs from Division 25? Division 24?
Good evening, fellow Kiwanians. I am Distinguished Secretary Ingrid from the Kiwanis Club of Charlton, Alexandria. Glad to be here with you this evening. With me, I have Director Chevanese and Prospect Rohan. Others should be joining in.
Thank you very much for joining. Are there any other clubs from Division 24? If not, we move to Division 23 West.
Good evening, PD. Paul?
Good evening, President. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. President Richard, other Kiwanians on the platform, the diplomats are in the house. Bring you greetings on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Linstead. We are currently 2 in number at the moment. I'm seeing my DP June here with me. Other diplomats should be joining your platform shortly. We are indeed looking forward to a wonderful meeting, and we thank you as always for inviting us to participate.
Thank you very much for joining in. Are there any other clubs from Division 23 West? If not, we move to Division 23 East.
PE Paul,
Yes, good
Hello,
evening.
good evening.
Good evening, I'm hearing you.
Distinguished development club.
Could you mute?
I'm hearing someone else speaking, that's why I stopped.
Okay. You have the platform, sir. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening
Go
to
ahead,
all.
DLG.
Good evening to all members, all Kiwanians. No, I'm happy that President Reese mentioned that the deacon that we had has changed a number of things, number of persons, status. I am one also. I was labeled as LG. Now I'm DLG Hewitt. Good evening to everyone, and I'm looking forward to an interesting meeting because sports is not just up my sleeve, it's all over my body. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining, DLG. And congratulations.
Congratulations.
I thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations, DLG. You it. Very good task done. It's a DS Noel from the Kiwanis Club of Guysville. I bring you cool greetings. With me, I'm alone this evening. Others should be joining shortly. Looking forward for exciting and wonderful meeting. I want to thank DLG Willie for the invite. Looking forward for a wonderful meeting with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining and your delegation. Are there any other clubs from Division 23 East? If not, we move closer to home, Division 23C.
Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
East.
Yes, please go ahead.
Were we introduced before 23 East?
You may introduce, you have the platform.
I'm not
please
sure
go ahead.
how many of us are online because it's hard for me to reach, but this is DP Herman Metcalf, and I thank you for inviting us to join your meeting. I know there are others. I see DLG Gertlin. I can't be sure who else is there, but I know some others are here, and we look forward to a very interesting meeting.
Thank you very much. We always look forward to welcoming your Kingston Club, of course.
Good evening, President Nikita from the Kiwanis Club of Worthington, Kingston. Currently, there are 3 of us online, Kiwani and Nikita and the Secretary LaShawn. We're expecting others to join in a bit. Thank you for having us and looking forward to an informative and interesting meeting.
Thank you very much, President Nikita. Always welcome to have you as well. Any other clubs from Division 23C? If not, we move to our SLPs.
Good evening, VP Daniel Heath from the Dunoon Park Technical High School. We are currently 4 in numbers and we're looking towards a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other SLPs?
Good evening,
everyone.
Good evening. This is President Kijani Williams from the Kingston College Key Club. We're 2 in numbers and we're looking towards a productive meeting.
Thank you very much, President Kijani. Yes, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. I'm Paris Campbell, the Secretary of the St. Jude's High School for Girls, and I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to what will be discussed in this meeting, and I'm alone in the moment, but my president should be joining shortly.
Okay, thank you very much for joining. Are there any other SLPs?
Good night, everyone. This is President Joshua Brown from the American University College National Club. And despite this blazing headache that I'm having, I made it my point of duty to not miss this meeting, as I am one who loves track and field. So I have here with me my distinguished secretary, Samantha Cornwall, and also District Secretary Dana Denton, and we're looking forward to a wonderful meeting.
Thank you very much, President Joshua, and welcome again to you and your delegation. Are there any visitors of Kiwanians with us this evening?
P. Paul, sorry, P. Paul, PD Paul had problems with my microphone open. Even though he's not my visitor, I understand that none other than Basil Bob Bailey has joined us this evening. So I would like to welcome him personally.
Okay, thank you very much.
And PD Paul, just wanted to, I did invite a few persons. I've seen one in particular, Keith. So I just want to welcome him.
Okay, welcome. Are there any members from the media houses with us as well? You could identify yourself. No? Okay. All right, any prospects of Kiwanis clubs with us as well? Okay then.
E.E. Paul, you have one of your prospects in the room.
Okay. Could you identify us? Is it a prospect, Andrew?
Prospective member Andrew Burton of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston here.
Okay, welcome.
Nice to guys again. Thanks much.
Yes, thanks for joining. Okay then, President, over to you.
Thank you.
Before you go, President, sorry to be late, just introducing DP Josephine here for Kiwanis Club of Mandeville. Three of us joining your meeting this evening. Kiwanian Gamal, Director Designate Kashif, and I'm DP Josephine. Looking forward to an exciting meeting.
Thank you very much for joining DP Josephine and your delegation. Okay then.
Good evening.
Before you go,
Yes, please go ahead.
Just before you go, this is PD Yvette Bernard from Kiwanis Club of the First City. At present, it seems as if I'm alone, but others will be joining later. Happy to be here and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for joining.
And good evening, PD Paul. This is DLG Keith joining the meeting. I'm solo. Not sure if other members will be joining me later. And I'm happy to be here and looking forward to a great meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, DLG Keith. Okay, President Richard, you may know.
Thank you, President Designate Paul. DLG Keith, I'm just reminding you to change your
Yes, President Richard.
You need to upgrade. Yes. The Sarge is here already.
Sorry.
Yes, but congratulations also.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm on the road driving home, so I'm in and out.
Yes, safe travel.
So
yes.
I'm not hearing at the moment. I don't know if you're hearing me.
We're hearing you clearly. Yes. Okay. There are no apologies for absence. I'm going to invite our VP Designate Bulletin Editor, Newton Ramdell, to bring us recognition of birthdays and anniversaries. Over to you, VP Designate.
Thank you, President Richard. Good evening, everybody. Kiwanians all. Once you're doing good for somebody else, we consider you a Kiwanian. In terms of special birthdays and anniversaries, today, the 18th, is the birthday of none other than Kiwanian Michael Archer. So anybody who is close to him, give him a COVID hug and say happy birthday. PD David Bailey, on the 21st of this month, he will be in double heaven because the 21st of this month is the birthday of PD Bailey, David Bailey, but it's also his anniversary. His wife Blossom and himself will celebrate their anniversary also on the 21st. And I'm going to ask DP Stewart, who I know is in the room, to remind our Sarge, DP Earl Spencer, his wife Marcia, on the 23rd, it's their anniversary. We don't want him to forget. So the 23rd is the anniversary of Marcia and Earl Spencer. And also,
I'm going to turn up a bit forward.
Are you hearing me?
Yep, yeah, we're hearing you.
Okay. And on the 24th of this month, it's the birthday of DP Lloyd Barnett Jr. That said, happy birthday, happy anniversary to all who we have spoken about this evening. If there's anyone listening in right now who has a birthday, anniversary, or any other special occasion coming up, we invite you to let us know right now so that we can celebrate with you.
I see DP Aldit put something in the chat. So DP Aldit, over to you.
DP Aldit.
Okay, I am also in the meeting. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am in the meeting also with some clubbers with the minister. So I'm actually to and fro, doubling up. Yes, next week, Monday, the 24th, will be my Sweet 16. My favorite ice cream is pistachio. My favorite cake is red velvet from Pastry Passion in Sovereign with the coconut topping. And I will also not refuse red wine and anything else that you all have to deliver. All right, so those persons who have the gifts, DLG Willie knows where I live. My cousin DP Desmond know where I live, so they will do the delivery. So feel free to call them up and let them do the delivery. And my favorite dinner, it's Labor Day, so I'll postpone Sunday dinner to Monday. It's oxtail with rice and peas and soursop juice with some rum cream in it. All right, rum cream and milk.
No steamed fish?
What a big
I just had.
Yes, I will take the steam before Monday. Remember, I'm accepting before and after and on the day. So you can spread it out. You all don't take everything one day. Spread it out.
Well, I'm sorry, but we will have to edit that request because you are at 16. You're not allowed any rum cream and you're not allowed any red wine. But everything else is on the table.
I just added 4 years to my age. I forgot. I will be 20 on Monday. I just remember I'll be 20.
Well, you need to walk with your bird people.
I just checked. My error. I just checked. I'll be 20.
All right. Anybody else? Happy birthday when it comes. Anybody else celebrating any special occasion?
May I say one thing, or can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Others in the house.
It's just to mention that the anniversary is rather special because it's now 40 years. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I must say that one thing we know is that Marcia is a long-suffering lady because
correct.
She's been there for 40 years. Maybe DP Stewart can give her the red wine that DP Aldit asked.
Yes.
Anybody else celebrating any special occasion? All right. Well, I know we are all to listen to these gentlemen who we have all been following. So back over to you, President Richard.
Thank you, VP Designate Newton. I now invite Secretary DLG William Reason to bring us Kiwanis education, and that will be followed by the main event. Over to you, DLG Willie.
Thank you, President Richard. Good evening, fellow Kiwanians, visitors, and special guests. Seeing that membership month, or May, is membership month in Kiwanis International, and next week is our planned induction, I thought I would remind you all of the requirements to invite a new member. Taken from the standard form for club bylaws, Article 4, Section 1. Prospective active members shall be considered for election to membership by invitation only or by transfer from an active Kiwanis club under the following procedures. A, each proposal for membership shall be submitted by a member of this club to the Secretary or the Committee on Membership Growth and Education, which proposal shall bear the signature of the proposer and endorsement of at least one additional club member, both of whom shall be members in good standing. B, all proposals for membership shall be submitted to the Board of Directors for consideration. C, each proposal for transfer may be submitted by a member of an active Kiwanis club directly to the Board of Directors for the purpose of changing club membership. Transfers must be requested within 6 months of discontinuing active attendance in the original club. Lastly, at a meeting of the Board of Directors at which a quorum is present, shall be elected and transferred accepted by majority vote of those present. And upon favorable action by the Board of Directors, the new and transferred members shall be notified personally concerning the action of the board, and the membership induction fee shall then be secured. Thank you, President Richard. That's Kiwanis education for this evening.
Thank you very much, DLG Willie. We now move to our main event for this evening, and I now hand over to our moderator, DP Stuart Spencer, to lead this segment. Over to you, DP Stuart. And would ask everyone to silence their mics.
Thank you, President Richard. And welcome to you all, fellow Kiwanians and guests. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce the panelists that we have with us this evening. And I'm going to ask them if they can put on turn on their video so that, you know, I know everybody wants to be able to see them. So, and based on my last check, all four are here. I'm assuming HL is Hubert Lawrence. And I saw the names for, now Oliver, I'm not sure if I've seen what his moniker is, but he assures me he's here because I confirmed it on WhatsApp. Let me begin by introducing Oliver Elmer Harris. He's a track and field analyst, writer of the Girls Champs section of the Champs Preview since 2006, and a Glenmuir man. We have also with us Hubert Lawrence, noted sports journalist, commentator, and author. He actually has a book out, Champs 100, which it's a century of Jamaican high school athletics, and it's available on Amazon, I might add. And he is a St. Jago man. Then we have Dr. Clyde Morrison, family physician, with a keen interest in sports medicine, and he has been team doctor on 2 national teams, as well as some football teams, national football teams. And he is an avid track and field fan and a Calabar man.
Great man.
And, and then we have Bruce James. He's the president of the MVP Track and Field Club, a noted track and field commentator, and a Wolmer's man. No, we don't have any JC or KC. we don't have any JC or KC men on the panel, but there are quite a few in the audience. So, you know, they will get a chance to represent. So, gentlemen, I'm just checking. Are your mics on, open, and your video is open?
Mine is.
I'm just.
Good evening.
All right, Hubert. Hi, Bruce.
Good evening.
Clyde, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And Oliver, can I see you?
Well, you're seeing him,
Oliver,
but
can I see you?
he's muted.
Okay, well then, I hope he's hearing me then. Oliver, you need to unmute. I hope you know which button that is, because he said he was having a little difficulty with some of these technological things.
Which school you
Oliver, Oliver, you okay now? Are we seeing him? Oh, you said we're seeing him, but we're not hearing him.
Purple.
He's still unmuted.
Oliver, you're gonna need to unmute. I just need to get that part clear first.
Maybe you could ask him to send something in the chat room because he seemed to be having some difficulty.
The thing is, I'm not sure what his moniker is because I don't see the name, but I know he's on.
He was A50.
What is he?
He was A50, Galaxy A50 or something like that.
You still
I don't see him anymore.
Yeah, I'm still seeing him though.
Okay.
Maybe it's from, you're not hearing the audio.
Maybe it's from KC, I'm having problems.
No. All right. I'm gonna get into it anyway. Let's. I'm sure he'll pick up.
Will get them nowhere whatsoever.
The first thing I really want, having just come off the Champs weekend, the first thing I want to ask our panelists is, what was your standout moment at Champs? And give me a girl's moment and a boy's moment. And I'm gonna ask. Let's start with Clyde.
Okay, my standout girls moment was certainly an emotional one, and it's the 100 meters class 2 when one of the Clayton twins picked, and her very close sibling was in tears and competed practically in tears, but still ran a very outstanding race because of the quality that she has. So for me, on the female side, that was certainly a very, very important and a big standout moment for me. On the boys' side, I would say it was the 800 meters class 1, which was astounding. I mean, we got amazing times, but just the competitive nature of the race changed hands at different points, and that really was a very outstanding moment for me among the boys.
Okay, Clyde. Let me see. Is there somebody? I'm hearing a little sound like a breeze blowing. Can anybody tell if that's
Clyde's fan? It sounds like he's on the track.
Is it? Yeah, I don't. It sounded like, when you're blowing wind, when wind is blowing.
Yeah, I have a fan on. I have a fan on. That's probably it.
Okay. Okay. It's a little disturbing. Maybe you could turn it off a little bit. Let me see if that is it anyhow. It may not be it, but if it stops, then we'll know. Okay, Hubert, let me ask you, what was your, and let me make it clear. If your standout moment is one that has been referred to already, you don't have to feel obliged to change it. So tell me what your standout moment was for Champs, both on the girls and the boys side.
I really was impressed with Stets winning all 3 boys 100-meter races, and sort of the return of Sashin Dennis on the boys side. I thought that was top class by Stets. And on the girls side, and I'm close to Clyde on that one, but on the girls side, I'm going to go with the magic of the Heidel captain's armband, giving Gabrielle White her first Champs gold medal in her last championship. So I'm going to go with those 2. Lots of stand-up moments, but those 2 Stets, 100 class 1, 100 class 2, 100 class 3, scarcely done at championships. And on the girls' side, the magic of the Heidel armband, with Gabrielle White winning her first gold medals in her last Champs.
Okay, great. And as you mentioned it, the Stets triple, I must admit that I must, commend Bruce, because Bruce predicted it. on air on TVJ. We all can remember that he said that Stets were going to win all 100. So kudos to him. Now let me see if Oliver is on now. Can Oliver hear me?
I'm hearing you well, but I'm not sure if you can. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Yes, we're hearing you. Great. Okay. Did you hear what the question was?
Sure. I heard the questions and I heard the answers. So I'm going to go a little bit off track. And here I'm going to call a name that I know Bruce and Hubert will know, but maybe some of you guys may not remember. Not one of the biggest names, but she ran one of the biggest times. Dejani Oakley of Clarendon College ran 52.5 in the class 2 400 meters. I mean, Clarendon College too. I'm a Glenmuir man coming from Clarendon. And yes, Clarendon College showed that, yes, we are coming back. That was my girl's most dramatic moment. And I know, because Clyde's one was so dramatic. Tears running on that 100. You couldn't beat that one. But in the male section, and I'm going to go back to Chevron Hall, the same person who ran the 800. But in the 1500, what was so exciting about the 1500, which was the first race he ran, he went out very hard and everybody said, oh my God, that's a rabbit. He's going to come back soon. And guess what? He never came back. Went right through the tape. From start to finish, that to me was the moment when everybody said, oh my God, this guy is for real. And of course, that set up the 800 for all those record runs.
Yeah, I remember that 52, and I was saying to myself, some persons on the circuit are running that same time, and she's a class 2 girl. Yeah, fantastic performance. Well, let me turn it over now to Bruce. Bruce, what were your standout moments?
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, Kiwanians all. Thank you for having me. On the female side, there's a young lady named Shantae Foreman who attends St. Jago High School. She won the long jump in a new personal best 6:43. She won the high jump in a new personal best 1:84. She then runs the ankle leg for her team, St. Jago, in the class 1 4x1 and goes from 4th to 1st and wins gold for St. Jago. She then runs the 4x4 also for St. Jago and they get a medal there. Outstanding that is high jumper, long jumper, comes to champ, sets a bunch of PBs, and then follows that up with relay medals. So 3 gold and I believe it was a bronze. And then on the men's side, I have to tell you that Javier Brown's 49.86 is outstanding in the 400 meter hurdles. Then he comes back the next day and runs 45.75 in the open 400 meters to win that as well. And then, kind of controversial, he wins gold for a 3rd time with the JC 4x4, again running the ankle leg. I understand, however, that the Jamaica College 4x4 team has now been disqualified. But Javier Brown has only hurdled competitively 6 times, and it was his 6th race when he got the gold medal at Champs and the Champs record.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's interesting because the lady you mentioned, that girl, it might have been like flying under the radar, because unless you're really watching the girls and noting all of these things, some people would have missed that. And so that's why you guys are here. You have the facts. I want to touch on something now in relation to the whole champs in terms of the preparation, because I think it was clear that some schools were not as well prepared as they usually are. And I guess there's a bit of COVID in that and the uncertainty. But I would like the panelists to kind of elaborate on what they think were some of the factors that may have affected the preparation, from preseason to the championship performances. Let me ask Hubert to go with that first.
Yeah, it's a combination of things that cause teams to have a difficulty. Monroe Championships, they were in champs in 1910 as Potsdam. And so no Monroe there. They have on-campus boarding. They've got a long tradition in sports, so no Monroe there. Some schools just found it difficult just to organize to create sterile bubbles on the school campus. Very, very difficult. And parents fearing the worst for their children. When I spoke to coaches, the parents pulled their children back and said, let's depart from contact for this academic year, stay in school online and do sports next year when Corona is defeated. And so it made it much more difficult for schools to organize themselves to put up full teams. We talked to Roderick Miles of the Rossi School. They reduced their team to maybe about a dozen children. Great performances from the Rossi School, but a lot of schools had to reduce the size of the team to a parameter they could manage and keep the children healthy at the same time. So that was a big issue this year. And maybe some of the sponsors of the area sponsors or someone who a supermarket giving you food is pulling back this year because they too are hit by other things. So I think the Corona affected teams. And then the second thing, because of the Corona putting camps off from March to April and then finally to May, you heard the coaches complaining, not even complaining, frustrated in terms of them not being able to program a peak for March. Then you have to stop. Program a peak for April. Then you have to stop and go back to, whatever you do to go back to the beginning. Then go again for May. So those two things, the Corona and children being pulled out of extracurricular activities by the parents, and two, the higgledy-piggledy stop-start nature of the season, making it difficult for the coaches to program you for a peak at this particular time and do that 2 or 3 times. So those things together cause some schools, the schools that did well, on-campus boarding Stets, on-campus boarding JC, on-campus boarding Edwin Allen. KC can overcome any difficulty apparently. Calabar, some on-campus boarding as well. Maybe some of those schools, the school's empty and the teams go into spaces at the school as well. Some schools just couldn't get over that hurdle and it affected them badly.
Thanks for those insights. Oliver, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, Hubert has covered a lot of the major points. However, there is a side which I guess I'll have to ask Dr. Morrison if the stop and starting and the peaking and the unpeaking and moving the championship date all the way from March finally to May. Is it possible or is it likely that a number of injuries might have been caused by that particular situation where coaches have to be peaking and unpeaking and a whole lot of stuff happening? Because I noticed that this year, I think we had more injuries than we're accustomed to seeing.
Yes, that is something I had on my list of things to bring up. Clyde, you want to jump in there?
Okay, I'm not sure that we had more injuries than usual, but certainly there were visible and perhaps very important injuries to some of the teams. But injuries is a part of track and field. Track and field is an intense sport. And all intense sports, the possibility, the probability of injury always exists. And I mean, as a result, one's programs, one's training is all to try to prepare your athlete as best as possible to minimize injury. But even with the best of preparation, it doesn't ever rule out the possibility of injuries. As was mentioned, our season really was an unusual one. In fact, one of the factors too, which Hubert probably didn't mention, is that we would normally have far more meets leading up to champs. So persons would have been less prepared, less race fit than they would have been in previous years, because a lot of the schools would not have attended the amount of meets that they would have normally attended. I mean, usually you have a meet every weekend, starting from JC meet in January. In fact, some from the December before. And persons, coaches, athletes would have had a chance to really rehearse, to have different objectives as the season goes on, and end up being better prepared in how they can execute the event, better prepared in terms of the time in the background training leading up to the peaking for performance. So, I mean, it must have played a role in injuries, because injuries, as I'm saying, it is not an abstract thing. But the point I'm making is that injuries are part and parcel, unfortunately, of any intense sport. And so you'll find that even though persons are prepared to the hilt, something happens which makes their muscles not as coordinated as it should be at a particular point in time, and an injury occurs. So I'd say yes and no. Yes, it would have affected it, but the fact is injuries are part and parcel with intense sports.
Bruce, would you like to add anything that may not have been covered? I'd like to hear your views.
Yeah, a quick point is I find that on average, we tend to get about 10 records at champs. We have 88 events each year at boys and girls champs, 46 on the girls side, 42 on the boys side. And we tend to have about 8 to 10 records. About 10% of the events, we get a record there. There was super champs in about 2013 when we had close to 30 records, which was a bit of an outlier. However, this year, I believe we only had about 4 records at champs. And so it perhaps suggests that something affected that. And I'm going to put it at the feet of COVID because we're in 2021. So that's what we do. Anything that goes wrong or awry this year, we blame COVID.
Reasonable. Yeah, that point about fewer meets that Clyde mentioned, I'm also wondering if that could have had something to do, because I understand that the predictions, the preview that did, that projects the points for all the schools. The top 3 schools, at least it's on the boys' side, were off by on average about 50 points. Some were 48, some were 50, 51, that kind of thing, all lower. So in a sense, the disparity kind of was maintained, or the differences were kind of maintained. But it was very unusual for the preview to come in that much off. Oliver, you've been writing. I don't know if you did it for this one, but are your numbers in that? Would you have had
okay, there is a championship. There was a magazine that was out this year. I didn't have anything to do with that one. I did a couple of predictions on the other side, but your point is well made that I know, for example, I had expected Jamaica College to get 380 points, and I expected Kingston College to get 370. But after you see all the injuries, especially to Kingston College, I could see where the 50 or 40 points, the 50 or so points went. For me, it had to do with most of the injuries and fall starting to, but then that's a part of champs. Problem is that when you do your scoring, you don't score and worry about whether Uri Lawrence from Kingston College is injured or Vassiani is injured. You see the name and you're going to say, you know what, maybe he's okay, and you score. So a lot of that happens. And every year we tend to score too high. That usually happens. But then fall starts and injuries, etc., etc. And of course, upsets will cause things not to go the way you expected it to.
Another thing that was different about this champs was because of the curfew caused by COVID, we had a lot of events, finals as well, run in much hotter temperatures than we are accustomed to, because the meet did not go into the late evening. Let me ask Bruce, how do you think that may have affected the performances?
So there are pros and cons to everything that happened. I actually like the new format of champs where we have 16 finals on the first day, as opposed to situations where you have no finals on the first day and you build up and then you have almost all the finals left for the last day. I find that depending on what the event is, having it in the middle of the day can be a big challenge. So having the 1500 meters finals at 10 o'clock in the morning, I think may have been more challenging for the athletes. Also, on the sprinting side, the event struggled at the National Stadium. There's a bit of magic that happens. From about 10 o'clock in the morning till about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the wind blows against the sprinters. And then when you get to about 6 o'clock in the evening onward, the wind will support them. So that's why we have found at champs, you get a record, you can get records in the sprints, usually in the later evening when the races are run. That just didn't happen. So there are a number of factors that came into play, and the time based on the curfew was a big one.
Yeah, that is something I've also been advocating over the years, that we should make more use of Tuesday, which I'm glad we did. So I didn't have a problem with that, but it's just that because of the curfew time, then, the scheduling had to be earlier. It also leads me to another point, because I can't help thinking that protocols were developed for horse racing, but we couldn't get around to developing protocols that allow track and field meets to get going earlier. We kind of have an idea why, but could we have done better? And when I say we now, it's not the track and field fraternity necessarily, but anybody wants to comment on that?
Okay, let me come in on that. All things considered, I think J3's ISA did extraordinarily well, because I'm sure we all understand that you are at your peril if you don't take COVID seriously. And the decision makers would naturally have been challenged about being very careful to give permission to something which could backfire in their faces in terms of an increase in COVID cases and all the sequelae that could follow from that. So it was not up to ISA, it was not up to J3s, but the government are the ones who had to give the permission. And they, I would say, understandably proceeded slowly, because we're talking about lives. COVID is serious business. So, I mean, it is almost amazing that we had champs, because I'm sure there's still a lot of persons who figure that, even principals probably, and certainly a lot of teachers, parents figure that we were foolish to proceed with champs. So when we think of what happened last week, it is some serious feathers, I think, in the hats of the organizers, that we had what was a successful champs. I mean, I guess it's gonna take another few weeks before we find out whether we were foolish, but so far so good. And I think that we should really commend J3s and ISA for having been able to argue. I mean, it was a lot of hard work convincing the government agencies to allow us to have qualification trials and all of this, and eventually to, at the last minute, get permission for champs, at which point a whole lot of accelerated planning had to go on. So I think really it's kudos to the organizers to have achieved it in this time of COVID.
Hubert, you have a view on it in terms of?
Yeah, absolutely. Track earned its way back. This is what the point is. Last year, the J3s under Warren Blake puts up a set of protocols to return sport. Government looks at them, they're sound and safe. They say yes to track and field. Bruce is on the broadcast here. His group, the World Class Athletics Group, puts up the Velocity Fest. That's last year. 5 of them at JC, Ashland Stadium, all supervised and monitored by the Ministry of Health, following the protocols. COVID compliant track meets were back on the table. They were at JC, they went to the stadium, all COVID compliant. We turned it into 2021, and track is in a strong position vis-a-vis football, vis-a-vis cricket, vis-a-vis every other sport, because in 2020, through that series of meets, born out of those protocols and out of the first series put on by Bruce and his group, they can see that track can put on COVID compliant track and field. So that's how we get the qualifying series and Western champs and Central champs and Eastern champs and corporate area champs, because track is paying its way back in by putting on meets that the government can see are COVID compliant. So when you go to the table for champs, you have a resume of success on the table. And of course, track and field is the most important thing we do in terms of consistent success. Tourism, maybe reggae music, not much else has given you #1 status for 60 years. Track earns its way back. And so hopefully there's no spike after champs, but I'd be surprised if there were, because I was there. I never saw COVID monitor talk to anyone about spacing or mask over their nose or whatever, and got a bad reaction. Because people knew that to make a mistake here would be to jeopardize not just track, but all the sports. But track pays its way back. Bruce is here. Well done, Bruce. Track earns its way back.
Yeah, great. Bruce, I'm sure you may want to add something to this discussion. I like how Hubert has put it, but I think you might want to add something.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to recognize that Hubert Lawrence spent years in public relations and promotion. And so he's on my payroll now, and that's why he promoted me so well a while ago.
Small Bruce, where are these checks? Where are these checks?
No, we don't have to check. No more checks. All by bank transfer.
Show me the money.
Yeah, the reality is track and field does enjoy a unique space in sports in that we do not have to be a contact sport. So when we promoted the Velocity Fest series in 2020, the real selling point that I made to the Ministry of Health and all the other authorities was that in reality, these athletes will be in their own lanes. And in fact, when we did Velocity Fest, we only did sprint events. We did not do even 800 meters, so that it was clear to all concerned that the athletes would not touch each other. They wouldn't be breathing on each other. In fact, we did a number of other innovations. We got rid of the call room. Most people think you need a call room at a track meet. I said, well, listen, we can't have a call room because that involves athletes gathering. Got rid of number bibs. Again, people thought number bibs were sacrosanct at track meets. I just said, listen, a number bib involves too much touching. You're going to have paper, safety pins and paper, and I'll have to hand it to you, and you have to hand it to me. And finally, we got rid of paper in general. Generally, people have the names of the athletes on a sheet of paper. We just said, all right, we're going to put everything online. We're going to set up a website. We just did everything online, and that's how we were able to manage having the athletes and officials safe at the Velocity Fest meets. And I'll admit my understanding is that ISA followed a number of those protocols, which is fine because that's what we want to do. We're here to make this work. Football, netball, and other sports like that involves a lot of contact and touching and tackling, which is a challenge for them to overcome.
Thanks for those points. It's interesting because some of the things that you're mentioning, and I'm sure other people listening to this just probably never thought of, even though we consider ourselves as conscious of some of the things that are necessary, but we probably just didn't realize that this is the kind of thought that went into us being able to stage championships. I want to move a little bit to the bigger platform in terms of and just as a lead into that, who do you think, did we see anybody at championships who you think might be able to make any waves at the national championships coming up in June? Let's start with Oliver.
Okay. On the boys' side first, and here I'm going to say, but it depends on what you call making waves. So I'm going to play very safe here. Usually at the national trials, our 800 meters, the 800-meter event is weak as far as world standards are concerned. We have 3 guys who ran 148. And I guarantee you that 148 will stand up very well against all the guys who come to trials. I'll be surprised if a 147 is run. But to more 800 is serious, but to events which Jamaicans consider to be more serious. It's gonna be tough. I mean, we can see Tina Clayton running 11-1, but 11-1, which would be great in any other country. for this year, it is going to be tough. But I think if Tina Clayton if she ran, she would make the finals of the 100 meters. I think she would. No other times we have seen a couple of girls running 52.4, but again, would not be good enough to make the 400. These are the ones I'm looking at. I can't really see. Again, like high jump on 4-man. Yes, but we're not a high jumping power. But I'm sure she'd make top 3 with her 184, 185. Because I'm told by her coaches that they expect her to get to 190. We haven't seen it. So, what can we say?
What about the hurdles, the boys hurdles, 400 hurdles?
The 48, the 49.8. I'm not even sure. Well, Bruce can tell you what the world qualifying standard is. I think it's what, Bruce, 48.8 or something like that?
48.90 is the time required to go to the Olympics. To answer the question, and Elmo has hit the nail on the head when you asked that, no athlete in high school in Jamaica at champs this year ran the qualifying time or made a qualifying distance or throw in any event. None. As great as they were great as juniors. None of them have made the Olympic standard for 2020/2021.
Okay. So, but that would not necessarily preclude them. Well, we don't know what could happen between now and then.
So Stuart, the only name to add to the list, Bruce and Elmo have you right on track with that. The only name to add to the list is maybe Antonio Watson at 200. In the state of the men's sprint now, we set a world record for 4x2s at the World Relays in 2014, long time ago now. That crew is now coming back from injuries and trying to hold on for what Daddy would call the last paradas. But, and some good people on that team, Johan Blake, Nick Ashmead, Warren Weir, Jermaine Brown, Rashid Dwyer was on that squad running the heats. They all could be in sub 20 shape this season. But what I've seen of Antonio Watson this year at 100 and 200, if he decides to come to the 200 and sharpens up, runs that turn, he could be done in 20.20, 20.30 by that time. And if he is, that would be the qualifying standard by far, and he would get towards the national team. So of all the children I saw last week, with the note that Bruce gave you of no one getting to an Olympic qualifying standard mark, he is the person of all I saw this week who maybe could get there. Javier Brown, JC, 45.75 for 400. He's like getting a blank sheet to coach. His coach is Neil Harrison, JC, good at coaching the 400 meters. Theoretically speaking, if you're picking 6 or 8 men to go to run 4x4, our top end is fantastic. World Relay Sylvain Doha, but he is the guy who could perhaps get into the 6, get into the 8. But just those 2, as far as I can tell.
I want to say a word about.
Think of it, Steve. Is this? Our national championships is for us our Olympic trials, but we should never ever forget it is also our national championships. So even though we may not have persons who achieve the Olympic standard, it also serves for persons in their ranking in Jamaica as to who are the national champions. And certainly some of these schoolboys and schoolgirls can figure, even if they don't make it to the Olympic team, can figure and play and be successful in our national championships when it comes up. For example, even the 800, we have about 4 other persons, not schoolboys, who are running 147, 148. So these 3 schoolboys who did 148, 56, 86, and 86, they certainly, we would expect them to be in the finals of our national championship 800, and they could even upset some of the guys who are running in the 147. So even though they may not make an Olympic stand, it will be still significant if our high schoolers come to our national championships and make a mark in terms of become national champion or do very, very well. well, Shante was mentioned, who certainly I think can figure in the high jump and long jump. Well, our long jump, our male long jumpers have been doing well, and I guess our high school long jump, in the same way the wind affect the sprints, the wind enhances our jump. So we got some good jumps which are all wind aided, but it showed promise. It showed promise in our triple jumpers, in our long jumpers. So it tells us that we are on a track to continuing and building up excellence in our track and field. So as I said, it's one way to think about national champs as picking an Olympics team, but it's also a chance when some of these school boys and school girls can actually come to our national champs and win or place highly. And that I think will be significant.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of why I use the term making waves. You know, that is exactly why I was speaking in that kind of, with that kind of language. But I want to ask Bruce now, he picked the 3 winners from Stets for the 100, but I can't help thinking that although Sachin Dennis did win, he ran, what, 10.2 2 years ago or something like that? So what do you think of him now? He ran 10.4. I don't know what the wind speed was in this champs, but Bruce, could you just comment on that aspect of it? And is he not progressing or what? What do you think?
Sachin Dennis is obviously outstanding. He's a class 1 champion in the 100 meters. He has now won the 100 meters in class 3, 2 and 1, which is a rare feat. Hubert Lawrence will tell you that another Olympic gold medalist in the 200 meters did that, a man by the name of Donald Quarry. So yes, Sachin Dennis, outstanding and amazing in terms of what he has achieved. He has had some injury problems, and so I would not use this year to judge him based on his time. The time, however, that I think we need to focus on for individual events, and this should give everyone here listening a good idea of the kind of quality that you need to meet for the Olympic standards. 10.05 is the Olympic qualifying standard for the 100 meters. And that's just super fast running. Everybody talk about, sub 10 being outstanding. Well, 10.05, I promise you, the margin between 10 flat and 10.05 is quite small. So that's the point I'm making about the high schoolers not making the Olympic standard. It's not, again, anything negative about their performances, because I expect that if they can find the motivation to remain in training between now and June 27th, that a number of them can make relay teams. I think Antonia Watson and Javier Brown can both be in the finals at our Olympic trials. And if they do that, 8 now go for the relays. And if Sachin Dennis can make it into the finals of the 100 meters, he too can be considered among the 8 for our 4x1 and 4x4s.
Okay, there's something I want to lead into, but let me lead into it this way. I was thinking, and it was actually I was just thinking today about it, that track and field needed something. And I was wondering, is there a format that we can develop? This is, I'd made some notes and put this down on paper that would encourage competing on a more regular basis on a professional level. And a couple of hours afterwards, I was seeing something on the internet, which is something that I think the JOA and the J3As have now devised. I think they call it the Olympic Destiny Series. Destiny Series, right? And I saw where prize money is being offered, and I think this is really a good move. But I want the panelists who are the experts to elaborate on that. This is good to hear now. But Bruce, you come into that now since you're on, and then I'll go to the others.
It's a very interesting move. It's a way to certainly encourage and give the locally based Jamaican athletes an opportunity to earn from track and field. I say that because if you are locally based but not a Jamaican athlete, you're not going to be allowed to earn from this initiative. It's strictly for Jamaican based athletes. This series called Destiny really is what used to be called all comers meets. And the J3s and the JOA has now put this financial incentive in place. So the first one should be this Saturday, and then there'll be 3 of them, and there's also one for the Paralympians. I'm not sure whether or not there'll be incentives in place for the Paralympians. But what I'm telling you is that certainly this Saturday, a lot of us in the track and field world are going to be paying close attention to it. I should warn, though, that NCAA rules prohibit student athletes from earning cash from their athletics. So if you're a high school student athlete hoping to get a scholarship to a US university, you should not participate and earn money because it's just against the NCAA rules.
But you could participate if you
Yeah,
want.
you can certainly participate. The rule doesn't say don't
Yes.
run against professionals. The rule says you can't earn money.
Earn money. Hubert, you must have heard about this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I think if you go to a all-comers meet, generally speaking, it's just the hardcore fans who go. Big crowds at Gibson, big crowds at Champs, big crowds at the races and the Jamaica Invitational, reasonable crowds at the national championships, but the all-comers meets needed something to put a pep in its step, and I think those dollars will do just that. And Session Dennis, 10.53, minus 2.3 wind. I think I did the numbers, 10.37 and still air. So he's back to good shape. But I think the money on the meets in Jamaica will put a special shine on those meets for those who live and train at home. And the athlete is a working person just like you and I. And so for them to be able to run those meets, they'd run them for free in the past, just to get a race in, to get shot for other races down the line. This now makes it sweeter for them, and it's good for track and field. I really like it.
The dates that I heard were May 22nd, which is this Saturday. I heard May 29th, and the following week, which is June 5. So it seems as if it's gonna be 3. But what I would like if somebody could explain to me, there were 2 categories of payments. They're called, as if there are 2 categories of meets. One was what? Called, I can't remember what they were headed as, primary or some. Who can tell me what's the difference? Because I did see 2 categories.
EP Stewart, can I interrupt? Can we ask for extension in time, please?
Sure, go ahead. I move it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Second.
Yes. Okay, Willie, thank you. Yes, are you aware of what I'm talking about when I said the 2 columns? Could you explain that for me?
All right, I can, I guess, since I have athletes competing this weekend. Essentially, what the J3s and the JRA have determined is that they're going to have 6 events that are considered premier and 4 considered classic. And they're going to pay the winner of the 6 premier events $100,000 and the winner of the 4 classic events $70,000. And it will go to the top 6 finishers in each of the events. And they're just saying the premier events are, I guess, of greater value than the classic events.
Okay, it sounded like there were 2 different meets, but I get, it's events within the meet.
Well, okay. Events within the meet, correct.
Within the meet, right. Clyde, you want to comment on it?
Okay. Generally speaking, barring a few, I Bruce will agree with, but our track and field athletes locally based are not really well off. So I think that this is something very, very welcome. It's not a great deal of money, but they will appreciate it. For example, I know that the government had or has promised a monthly payment up until the Olympics, and I know that hasn't really worked out as it should have. So anything that we can do which will improve the lot of our local based athletes, I'm very, very happy to hear. So and it will probably improve the competitiveness of the meets, because I mean, as Bruce will know, more panelists know that different persons come, and for whatever their agenda is, you may wonder about the effort they put into a race and so on. So this will be another factor which might affect how somebody performs in a meet. The fact that there's a financial incentive put in it. So, you know, I'm sure it will be welcome, and I'm very happy about it. I haven't really heard all the details. So, you know, Bruce has told us. I'm happy.
There's one other caveat I had heard in that they also have to meet a particular standard. I don't think it's the Olympic qualifying standard. It's a standard. So if they don't perform above that standard, they don't earn the money. That much I can say. Oliver, quickly, you want to just add something if it has not, if what you want to say has not been covered, and then we're going to move on to another aspect. Oliver? I don't know if he lost his connection. All right, let's move ahead now in terms of the pros. Who are we looking forward to emerging as our standard bearers then? In other words, who are we looking forward to as the national champions of some of the various events as we get to the June Olympic trials? Let's call it that. Hubert, you go first.
Yeah, the complexion of the track and field this year, the team that you saw win 12 medals at the World Champs in 2019, all except for, say, maybe Shelley Fraser-Pryce, very experienced, gold in 2008 to begin with. This is 2021. But beyond that, when you look at Shericka Jackson in her mid-20s, when you look at Daniel Williams, 26, 27 is going to come back again for another couple of seasons. When you look at that group of athletes, Tajay Gale, just 22, maybe is it 23, 24 now. So that's the generation of athletes who are going to come through, win the national titles, and go through to the Olympic Games once they have them in 2021. So you're looking at that team coming to validate what they did in 2019 through the national championships and go through to the Olympic Games once they're held. For the veterans like Shelley and Fraser-Pryce, Elaine Thompson, top class sprinters, they put on a great show at the last nationals, 2019. Now, Elaine has had a chance to rest that sore Achilles. She's looking and feeling good again. That injury not troubling her. She's learned how to work around it. Shelley Fraser-Pryce, very experienced, and you worry that the extra year will be a year, you know, had the engine kept running right through 2020, and that being the Olympic Games, you give her a good chance. And there's Sha'Carri Richardson running real fast in the United States. So hopefully she can manage the extra year, come back as good as she always is, and come back to 10-7 form. If she does that, she's right there. So I think the general complexion, Sir Stewart, is that the team you're looking at to come through the nationals is the 2019 World Championships team. Is there somebody new? Can Antonio Watson run 20 flat and get his way into a team spot at 200? Or will the veterans of the world record team, Johan Blake and Nick Ashmead and Rashid Doyle, will they come back at their normal 19.8 shape and stop him from getting there? That men's 400, women's 400, two strong events for Jamaica, finalists in both the men's 400, women's 400. Steph McPherson, early 30s now, training really well. She's going to get back to 49 point again. On the men's side, will you get Nathan and Akeem Bloomfield and Demish Gay back in the form they've been the last few years and running mid and low 44s, maybe faster? Bloomfield has run 43.9. So, you know, it's a strong team and a young team almost all across the board. I think we've got us, and Omar McLeod is in that group too, defending Olympic champion. Should he defend his title, he'll join Roger Kingdom and Lee Calhoun as the only men to defend his title. I think they're coming through the nationals, that group, to get to the team, to get to Tokyo. I think that's what you're going to see. People trying to validate what they've done in 2019 and to keep on going to Tokyo.
Oliver, let me ask you to come in at this point. I don't know if yeah, I'm hearing you. I wasn't hearing you before, but you're coming on this point.
Okay. There are a couple of names out there. I'm sure Bruce can tell you about Broadbelt, this new just out of school hurdler. He has already run 13-1. in the MVP camp. Not sure if he's supposed to be a secret, Bruce, but a lot is expected of him. You know, I mean, he was a world leader at one stage, and I expect him to just go from strength to strength. I don't see a sub-13 being out of his reach. Then I guess Bruce can tell us about people like Ronald Levy, who has had his injury problems, and so on. A lot is expected from MVP, you know, so I guess Bruce can tell us all of the fancy athletes who are coming out of his camp who will do the thing for Jamaica.
But I want to let us not forget that there are a lot of overseas-based Jamaicans, especially among the girls, who have been showing up quite well on the NCAA circuits, as well as just generally in the US. Who wants to talk about some of those names?
Well, let me just quickly say, certainly in the sprint hurdles, I like how we're looking. We have Brittany Anderson, who just ran 12:68 or 69, I think. There is Akira Nugent, who won the college indoor 60-meter hurdles. So there are a lot of prospects for the females in the sprint hurdles, right? We still have Williams and so on. So there are a lot of prospects out there. 100 meters, again, also a lot of prospects. We still have Elaine and Shelley, and then a whole lot of new people coming on. Talia White, again, all of these people are MVP, RMVP International. We have yet to see Brianna Williams come back to form, but we expect her to be there. And, you know, names you can throw out like Kibona Davis and so on. But we just have to wait and see.
Clyde?
Okay. Right now, I would say our prospects certainly do not look as bright as in previous years. I mean, we heard about how well we had done in 2012, and we know what happened in 2016 as well. COVID again has affected everything and everybody. Without being a prophet to do, we're not even sure if we're having Olympics because of what is happening there in Japan. And I think that trickle down has affected everybody everywhere. So right now, it would have been nicer if we saw our athletes further on in terms of their performances. So we're hoping that between now and July, if we do have the Olympics, we see them coming on. But right now, based on where they are, we may not do as well as we have become accustomed to. As was mentioned, as Hubert mentioned, we know our stars, and we hope Shelley will be as good as ever. Elaine certainly is looking very good. Sharika, we know, barring injury, is gonna come on well. Our hurdlers too, as has been mentioned, have been shaping up very, very well. And I mean, our male hurdlers too, making that team maybe one of the hardest tasks it has been for many Olympics, making the top three for the national team, because so many persons are there. But generally, in terms of the very high level that we have been accustomed to, one just hopes that we will come on in the next few weeks to indicate that we are going to approach the sort of high standards that we have been accustomed to. Our 400 runners, for example, really haven't turned up as yet. And we know we have a little bit of time yet, but to be honest, they really haven't turned up. I mean, the rest of the world has been running 44s. We haven't had anybody approaching that as yet. So, you know, we seem a little behind in some of the events that we are accustomed to be doing very well in. So my fingers are crossed.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to hear any more talk about maybe we don't have an Olympics. Let's not even contemplate that one. But I understand what you mean, because I heard about what's happening in Japan. Bruce, your views on this aspect as to who we really are looking to to emerge as our standard bearers?
There are a few more names that haven't been called, but you have an excellent panel who have gone through all these events. But I'm going to add names like Stacey Ann Williams in the women's 400 meters, Kemba Nelson in the 100 meters. Chris Ann Gordon is the fastest Jamaican at 400 meters on the women's side this year. Brittany Anderson was mentioned, as was Akira Nugent. And the very big and important factor for Jamaican track and field starts this weekend, which is the Diamond League. So the first Diamond League meet is scheduled for Gateshead in the UK. So I think this kind of conversation will continue starting next week, because for the first time, we'll have serious international competition for Jamaican athletes. The Diamond League represents the best of single day competitions in athletics. So really, any concerns will either be allayed or revealed come this Sunday.
And you know, Bruce, I hesitate with the events, the women's 100, women's 400, women's sprint hurdles. These are excellent teams. And for newcomers to break into those groups, they've got to kick the door down, because that door is a solid oak door with double locks, with top class people. Women are world champions at 4x1, world champions at 4x1, and at 4x4 among the medalists, people in the final. And in this season, experience is going to count for a lot. You're right, the Diamond League will give the top class professionals a chance to sharpen, and then the numbers that Clyde is worried about, you'll start to hear them: 44, 20 low, 10-0, 9, and so on from Jamaicans now. But I think in those big events where Jamaica's women's sprint hurdles, 3 ladies in the Doha final, 1 in the semifinal, barely missed it. Even though you've got good newcomers, up and coming people, they're going to find it tough to really shake up the top line in women's sprint hurdles and the women's 100 and the women's 400. So let's watch it, but that's my guess.
Okay, at this stage, I want to invite members from the floor, because we're kind of watching the time as well, because there might be some persons who have questions that they want to pose to the panelists, and I want to make sure that we give them a chance. Is there anyone who wants to pose?
Can I go ahead, DP Stewart?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I just want to take the discussion a little bit to a different area. In terms of all development, we in Jamaica, you know, we look at the sprints as being the stellar event, and everybody wants to be a sprinter. All right, but I'm trying to figure out why we not been making a more concerted effort to develop the middle distances. I'm happy with what I'm seeing in some of the field events now, but certainly beyond the sprints, I am not getting the feeling that we are paying sufficient attention towards developing middle distance race runners. What is your panel's opinion on that?
Who wants to take that first?
Okay, listen, middle distance, when we look at our high school middle distance, it certainly stands up to the quality that we see in many other countries. The problem exists in us transitioning from high school to professional or to the senior level. And while our sprinters, if a lot of them go to college in the US is pretty strong in the area of sprinting, so they get better development there in sprinting. When our middle distance persons go to college in the US, unless they're really in a very, very good program, they probably end up doing very well, but their times are not improving out because they're not really in very competitive environments. So the whole support structure to improve our middle distance, because it's not as if our middle distance persons stay in Jamaica and we have a middle distance program which trains them. Most of these high schoolers will get into a school overseas, and their plateau is oftentimes not world class. So they do well, maintain a scholarship, but there's not enough, not a pointed program that can move them into world class. So unless it is that we were to have a program here in Jamaica which keeps our middle distance persons and is geared now to have them attain that standard, it will be difficult for us to really see that happening in the present system as it exists.
Yeah, but that's exactly the question I'm asking. Why have not we been doing this, trying to develop it in Jamaica?
Chris, two-part answer to your question. One, the success of Jamaica in the sprint, especially in what we call the golden era, a SAFA world record 2005, SAFA world record 2007, and then Bolt comes and revolutionizes sprinting, draws lots of prospects to sprinting, and I think draws some away from events which are longer, 400, maybe even 800, that they would be better suited to. That's one. Number two, when Dr. Warren Blake became J3's president, he made a link with the Kenyans to bring a coaches swap, to bring Kenyan coaches here to sort of teach us how to coach those events, and that didn't quite work out. In the same time, Puerto Rico has 3 men who are sub 145. You remember now that Seymour Newman ran 145.21 in June 1977. That's still our national record. Yeah. In the meantime, Puerto Rico has run 3 guys under 145, and their top guy is 143. Vasquez was in the World Champs final in Doha. So I think there are other models that we need to look at about how to select and prepare our young men and young ladies. Gula, of course, is doing well, World Champs final, so she's young and around the place. I think we still have Neville Mighton around, Clive Turlong, World Indoor Champion. We have enough people, Tina Sinclair is still out and about, that we could wheel around to the schools, meeting and greeting and popularizing those events to give them someone to look to who is Jamaican, who has been world-class in the events. The world-class examples we have are of sprinters, and power to them. They've done a brilliant job. But I think it draws the attention of the coach and the athlete and the parent away from these other events, including the 800, in which we had been good in the past. Wint, George Carr, Newman, Terry Long, all top class. Mighton World Junior record back in 1964. But we need to give the youngsters expertise, but also someone Jamaican who has been good at the event that can make it sexy for them. If we don't do that, they will go to what's very attractive, what's shiny and bright, and those are the sprints.
Bruce, you want to comment on that point?
I don't know that our goal should be to be the best in everything. I do not fundamentally, and I have a lot of respect for Chris, by the way, I get quite a guess, but I don't fundamentally have an issue with us being exceptional at some events and not very good at others. So I will admit the 800 meters is an event I think we could be good at, but I don't know that the 15, the 5,000, the 10,000, 20-kilometer walk, 50-kilometer walk are necessarily events we're going to be outstanding at. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. I know there are countries that are exceptional in the distance races, and they're not really that good in the sprinting. So I don't know, Chris, that the answer is Jamaica should be great at all 22 Olympic track and field events.
Reasonable. Oh, Bruce, there's something I had forgotten to ask you. Just a little throwback. When you were on air at Champs, you had pointed out something about the medley, the starts, and about the stagger. Could you just elaborate on it and explain what it was that you saw as a problem?
I can't accept. I understand the officials were upset that I raised it. You're to stay, depending on what line you start at, that determines how many turns you run in your lane. And it was apparent to me and Elmo and Hubert and anybody else I spoke to that the athletes were lined up at the 400-meter start line, which is a 2-turn stagger, and should really properly have been at the 4x4 start, which would have been a 3-turn stagger, since they had the athletes remaining in lanes for 3 turns. That's that's it in the simplest form. I hope somebody can translate that to
So
Kiwanians.
the persons in the outer lanes were at a disadvantage.
They ran a longer distance. In fact, the only team that would have run the correct distance would have been the team in lane one.
Okay, and they have not acknowledged that they made an error.
Oh, they did acknowledge it because in the finals of the medley relay, which was run on Saturday, all teams were put at the 4x4 staggers. So they used the correct staggers in the finals, which is
in the final
as good as confirmation that I was correct in my observation.
As you usually are. Okay.
Kind of
Newton, are there any questions in the chat that you have seen? You can keep looking, but if anybody from the floor has another question, now is the time.
Stewie.
Oh, who is that, Clovis?
Yeah, yes, Stewie.
Go ahead.
Just three questions, short questions for the panelists. I was looking at the results of the recently concluded champs, and I'm seeing in the girls class 200 meters, the meet record of 11.16 set by Kivona Davis in 2018. And I also note there's a 11.40 by Kimon Shaw in 2016. Not sure why you'd have meet records of 11.16 and 11.40 in the same event. All right, so that's one it can educate me on. The other thing is Tina Clayton. She ran 23.45 in the girls class 200 meter. But this is with a headwind of minus 3.2. I know Hubert mentioned something earlier that he did the calculation. I'd love for him to tell me what the calculation is if she was running with positive or even zero wind. So 23.45 at minus 3.2, what would that equate to? And the last question, no mention has been made of Natasha Morrison, who did 10.87 recently. Any reason why?
Let's see now. First question, Printer's Devil, bringing up old stuff that shouldn't be there. One. Number two, 23.45. I think I looked, it was 23.2 when you did the adjustment to zero wind. And Natasha Morrison, I'm not sure, but she has been there before in the finals 2015, part of a gold medal 4x1 team 2015. She is coach hopped a little bit, but settled down now back again at the MVP. And I think she's one of the people who is in the picture.
Hubert, let me add, since I was in touch with Natasha up to this afternoon, she leaves the island Clovis on Thursday for the Gateshead Diamond League. So Natasha, having set a new personal best of 10.87, as you pointed out, is the second fastest Jamaican this year, Elaine Thompson being the fastest at 10.78. So Natasha Morrison leaves the island Thursday with a number of MVP athletes to compete at the Gateshead Diamond League. So let's watch that on Sunday and see how she does.
BP Stewart, may I?
Yes, sure. Go ahead, Marcel.
Good evening, gentlemen. Fabulous program. Two quick things. One is an observation and the other a question. Antonio Watts, but I was impressed. But I was impressed mostly with an off the track matter. I was really impressed with the interview of him. I think he showed a lot of maturity and answered the questions very well. Others did too. But one of the things that he cleared up, which was good, was the reason for running the 100. And I think it's also because of the events, how they were programmed, unavoidably. And he went for the 100 and the 200 as opposed to the 200 and the 400. And I think what that said is, to me, he's being well managed. I think somebody had said, I think it was probably Bruce, that he's a budding, or he is in fact a national treasure, and we need to really manage him properly. Or we need to probably make sure that he's managed properly as far as he can. The other thing is, quickly, I noticed that there were quite a few PBS, personal best performances. And I was initially very surprised because they were awful. But then I thought, is it that the comparison really will be over a 2-year period? So persons, because we didn't have champs last year, So running this year, persons would have naturally improved, although there was a lack of competition and so on to be doing. There's quite a few, in my observation, the persons who in the semifinals, persons who came third and fourth and so on, were running personal best. Any comments on that?
Who wants to say that?
Okay, personal best includes all events. So it's still significant that persons ran their personal best because they ran those events early in the season. So it's not just a comparison with 2 years ago. It's not personal best at champs, it's their personal best. So that they would have had chances in the build-up meets to have run better times. You know, so it's a good sign that persons are improving.
Yes.
You know, so you know it shows progression, and so what I'm saying is not a comparison to 2 years ago, but even as those the meets building up the champs came along, we saw persons
included. Okay, great.
Better and better and better, and it came to a hilt at champs, and hopefully if they continue training, as Bruce mentioned, the times are going to get better too between now and national junior champs and national senior champs. Remember, we're going to have a national junior champs as well, because there is World Under 20 Championship, which is still scheduled to be held. So we're going to be having a junior championships and a senior championships coming up in June.
Okay, great.
If the person's name is Boyce, let me share with you, and I'm declaring a bit of interest. I became familiar with an app called Roster Athletics. And one of the things it does, it includes information on the personal best of athletes. It is possible, Boyce, that we have had this level of personal best being run at champs each year. The difference is because of the introduction of Roster Athletics, a lot of the folks in the media were able to track the number of personal bests being set.
Okay. Good.
So, and I declare interest because I was involved in introducing it to champs this year. But it was a great tool, and I think even Oliver Elmer Harris, who initially said, "What's the big deal about this tool?" became a convert during champs.
Thank you, my friend.
Who else would like to ask a question? Anybody else?
I have a question.
Okay.
You hear me?
I'm hearing you.
All right. So about the same time thing with Antonio, where he looked at the schedule and they had to do the 100. You see where Oakley, I think she did the 200 but couldn't turn up after she ran the 400. Is there any suggestion you would suggest right now that you think Issa could take into place to like make the events more feasible for athletes? And also, secondly, what advice would you give to anybody that aspire to have a career in the sporting arena?
I know that Dejane Oakley has some discomfort she's handling this season. And so I don't know if her non-appearance in the event you saw, Alex, is related to the schedule. But this is a special year. And every year the advice is for champs is to, champs 101 is read the schedule before you plan your doubles. So like 400, 800, virtually impossible at an equality level this year because the 400 was followed right by the 800 back through the prelim stage. So once you see the schedule, that's not going to go well unless you're much better than everybody else. But I think this year, those discomforts with the schedule, this is a brand new year with very awkward circumstances. You have to finish the meet before curfew. You must make the meet, the traffic inside the stadium complex, COVID compliant with people giving each other space. And so those two things, and 16 fouls on day one, I'd have done 8 and keep scaling up through the week. That's my personal reaction to the schedule. But this year, I don't think we should be too hard on the schedule because this is a special year requiring special circumstances. But in general, I think, Champs 101 is really scheduled. In big meets, Olympic Games, World Champs, 4-8 not often provided for at all. They provide for 1-2. They provide for sometimes 8-15, 5,000, 10,000. They don't even provide for sprint hurdles, 4 hurdles pretty often. And so you have to read the schedule and then plan the events you will pick for the championship according to what's provided in the schedule. So that's tricky.
Okay. All right, thanks, Hubert. That's a pet peeve of mine from years now, that I've seen so many people, attempt the 2-4 double, and some manage it okay, but it has kind of caused a lot of athletes to break down. And that was one of the events that I was hoping that eventually, and maybe next year, that the 2 and the 4 would not be on the Saturday. That's just me.
In big meets, Stuart, what they tend to have is the 100 and 400 start at the same time and finish at the same time. And so if you want to run 200, if there's not too much overlap, maybe you can try it. But if you go 100 and it finishes a different schedule, then 200 then it finishes, then 1-2 is very much doable in that type of split.
Yes. Any more questions? Because we're getting into wrap-up time now. So I'd just like to make sure we accommodate those who have questions.
I just have a quick one, VP Stuart.
Go ahead.
I'm not too sure when this track was laid, how recently the track at the National Stadium was laid. Because I know the COVID has interfered with the preparation of the athletes, and we had winds and so on. But I was wondering if the track had something to do with the times, if it needed a little more time to be as quick as the previous tracks. I just wondered, and I wondered if the experts could discount that.
Let me ask, because I do think the National Stadium track was relayed not too many years ago. But one of our panelists should be able to tell us exactly. That
is one. And the other short one is, and I must say I'm not a Calabar old boy, but I was wondering what had happened to Christopher Taylor. I mean, this is a young man who did, I think, 20.3 as a schoolboy. We hail in Petersfield now, who did 20.7 as a national treasure. What has happened to Christopher Taylor?
Claudia, you want to help?
He's part of a track program in Northern Florida. So we're hoping that he's gonna do well this year. He had his first official outdoor 400 last weekend. So, but he's part of a professional group with some very, very fine athletes, and we can only hope that this year we are going to see the benefits of this program that he's in.
And quickly, the track laid down this year, early in the year, this year 2021, and 2, Chris has run some races, indoors and outdoors, that indicate that he's building well as a senior. So give him some time. The pressure to be the new Bolt is huge. There's no new Bolt coming. Let him be the first Chris Taylor, 10.11, 20.35, 44.88. He's run 32 for indoor 300s already this season. Some decent outdoor 300s and 400s. I think he's going to be okay. Let's give him some time.
And Warren, you might want to remember that he did run the 300 at Iran, was a national record. That was just a couple months ago. Okay, who else has a question?
If you allow me, just a last quick one. Bruce mentioned earlier, and I agree with him totally, that there's a tendency to run the sprints late in the night, and those times are fast. So I'm attracted by what Tina Clayton did in the 100 class too. And she ran 11.38 with a headwind of 2.1. I just wondered what Hubert did say, what that equates to, and the fact that Tia is faster than her. What does that mean? They're getting very close to Kivona Davis' record, and I see a lot. I'm really impressed by that twin.
How you know which one is faster?
No, when she came, she has always been the faster one, Tia, and she was the favorite before she first started. So that's why I'm saying that.
Okay.
Even her sister said that she was expected to win.
Okay.
No, that's not true. Actually, this year, Tina has been consistently faster than Tia this season. Tina has been consistently faster than Tia this season. But listen, guys, we should always operate with a caution with young athletes. And I think I mean, it goes across the board that one should never call people too early, right? I mean, because somebody is very promising at 13, 14, 15, this does not mean that they're going to become a world beater. We ought to be very cautious. We wish them the best, we support them, but you know, it doesn't always translate into being a world beater because you are fantastic at 14, 15. So, you know, that is just a caution.
Was your question answered, Clovis? I'm not sure if you had another question, if your question was answered. Are you
No,
okay?
it really wasn't answered. I was waiting on Hubert to tell me what does that 11.3
Oh yes, that time.
equate to based on the 0.21.
Okay, he
Minus
just told you.
11.25 in still air.
Repeat that for me, Hubert.
11.25 in zero wind.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good. All right. I'm gonna ask the panelists to kind of, after we have cleared any last questions, to just give me a final wrap up as to how you see the state of Jamaica's track and field, and maybe including it somewhere, because I think right now I'm wondering if we are underestimating the men, because the women seem to be showing up more. You hear people talking about the women and not as much about the men. Now that may be justified, but maybe there are some running under the radar that we're not watching. So let's take the final question. I'll take two more questions if there are two more, and then we're gonna go around the panel and they're wrapped. Newton, you didn't see any in there?
Oh, the ones that were in there, DP, they have the person come forward and ask.
Have been covered, okay. Anybody on the floor? We just take one more call. If nobody else has any more questions, then we'll go to the final wrap with the panelists. Okay, we're gonna go to that. Okay, let's start with Oliver. Give me a final wrap of how you see the season, what we have to look forward to, and you know, at the Olympics. And you know, we're not gonna focus on what Clyde said as a maybe. We're gonna assume that there is an Olympics.
There is one.
All right.
Okay. But first, as far as our championship is concerned and how, when we compare the result of this championship with the others, one of the problems which Bruce spoke about a number of times was the wind. So like when the gentleman was talking about how Watson ran 20.7 and he's hailed as the new Bolt or something like that, where Chris Taylor did 20.3. Maybe Watson can do 20.3 right now. He did 20.5 2 years ago, but the wind messed up all the sprint times. So that's a problem. I think that we are just as good as we were. I mean, barring the whole Bolt scenario, but our athletes are just as good. Yes, we have a slight problem with the men. I expect us to do well if everything goes according to plan. I expect us to do as well as 2019. I mean, 2019, we didn't expect anything either. All of a sudden, we're getting a long jump gold medal. We're getting, you know, triple jump. The field events came up and the ladies were sprinting well. Our female sprinters are just as good as they were. In fact, we may even have some more. Our men came second in the 4x4 in 2019. I think barring injury to our team and Nathan Allen and so on, we should have a decent team. But again, these are COVID times and who knows what will happen. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Okay, Clyde, I want you to go next.
Jamaica track and field is alive and well. COVID has been a bit of a hiccup because what makes our track and field so amazing is that it goes right down to basic school. So we start very early. Parents have bought into the idea that maybe their child is going to be the next star. And so you have that sort of parental support all the way through basic school, prep school, primary school, high school. But I'm saying COVID may have just put us back a year or 2 years because not too much happened last year and this year in terms of the volume that we are accustomed to. But Jamaica still has an amazing future in track and field. And once we can get persons training, running, we're going to see the results. This year, I'm saying because of COVID, it might have set us back a bit. But as far as I'm concerned, Jamaican track and field is still alive. We're still poised to be a track and field power in the world. I mean, we still have, in fact, a lot of persons compare us to America, saying that, you know, like we go to Penn relays, do so well, and what happened to Jamaican athletes after that? Our transition rate from high school to senior athletes is much higher than North America. Even though the fact is we need to understand that not every high school star is going to be an adult star, and that's a fact. But in terms of the talent we have and the promise of what is to come, we are very, very well served. So I am very, very optimistic about our track and field going forward.
Thanks, Gary. Hubert, can you go next? Can you go next?
We have a lot of work to do to develop medal streams in all the events we can be good at. Explosive events, maybe the 800, maybe more of the jumps and some of the throws. But I think we have a very strong platform to work with. We have a generation of youngsters who have grown up seeing their heroes. This didn't happen before until the late 1990s, started to have heroes at home. On the men's side, a special point on that. That down low we feel on the men's side relates to sprints. Tajay Gale is world champion. Frederick Dacus is silver. Omar McLeod is the reigning Olympic hurdles champion with lots of staff with him in those events, including Broadbell. So we're strong on the men's side. The men's 4x4, Gay and Bloomfield in the Doha 400 final, just 2009, the last in the world convened. But because we're not seeing Bolt and Asafa and Johan Blake at his very, very best in our minds, we're affected by it because for us, gold in the 100 meters for men is worth more than any other medal. So we now have to also broaden our thinking to having Tajay Gale, Dacus, Omar McLeod at that same level of impact, because they are also men who compete in track and field for Jamaica. The sprints will come back. The Calabar Dream Team, Matheson, Raheem Chambers, Wazim Williams, young Oblique Seville, 10-1-3 at champs in 2019. There's enough ammunition coming down the line in Jamaica in the sprints, but you have to wait for it to develop to its fullest. All of those boys are in supervised programs with good quality coaches, good programs. So someone is going to come through in the men's sprints. But in the meantime, let's not discount Tajay Gale, Fred Dacus, Omar McLeod, and the other athletes who are not in sprints, but who are the very best world class. I think we're okay. I think the men are okay. The sprints will come back, and the women, so much good stuff, 100, 200, 400, 800, both hurdles, long jump, triple jump. Maybe a high jumper in Foreman will come in the future. The relay is brilliant, not just for 2021, but 24 and 28. So it's a bright picture. The men will come back in the sprints, and the men are strong in other events other than just the classic 100 meters that we want to have as our flagship. The flagship not there right now, but the rest is strong. Good picture, bright picture.
And Bruce, it's your turn to give me your wrap.
No, you're going to discover that I know Clovis Metcalf personally when I make this statement. Tina Clayton's personal best 100-meter time is 11.27 with a positive 1.4 wind. Tia Clayton's personal best time is 11.29 with a positive 1.1 wind. So Clovis, I think you have a good point if you feel that Tia Clayton should be considered possibly the fastest of the two twins, even though not this year. With that said, with respect to track and field overall, we had this little meet at GC Foster College 2 weekends ago, and it was run at 8:20 in the morning. And we put together 4 teams of 4x1 men. And the team of Asafa Powell, Julian Fort, Johan Blake, and O'Shane Bailey ran 38.33 seconds in the 4x1. That time would have won at the World Relays, which was held the weekend before, and happened to be the second fastest time in the world this year. On the women's side, if you look at Shanika Ricketts and Kimberly Williams in the triple jump, they're third and fourth in the world right now. Hubert Lawrence, I'm going to agree with you, which is an easy thing to do when it comes to track and field, that when it comes to medals, Jamaica is going to score well. Just that we got all so spoiled from 2008 to 2016, knowing that we were going to get double-digit medals every time at the World Champs and the Olympics. And we knew we were going to have 2-3 medals from Usain alone, 2-3 medals from Shelley-Ann alone. So it kind of got to a point where we expected things to kind of fall into our laps. And some of what we consider the glamour events, we're just not shining there now. But in terms of Jamaican track and field, I believe we're going to acquit ourselves well at the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks to the panel. And we have somebody designated to do an appropriate vote of thanks. Newton, it's over to you.
Thank you, DP Stewart. Illustrious panelists.
Not seeing Newton.
You're not seeing. Okay, let me. Yes, with a panel like this, we have to. My lighting is bad, but I need to show my feet. Okay, there we go. So, as I was saying, I am by no stretch of the imagination the one most qualified to raise a vote of thanks to such an illustrious panel. But on the other hand, when I think about it, the clarity with which they have explained everything this evening probably means that it's a sporting dunce like me who has the most reason to say, thank you, gentlemen, right? Because without you explaining it, then I probably would be lost. You know, I must admit that, and all four gentlemen are people who I have followed. I am by no means one of those sporting people who can reel off these statistics, but I've followed all four gentlemen, and I must admit, gentlemen, in a good way, that there are times when I've listened to all of you gentlemen, and sometimes I wonder if boy, you're just showing off on somebody like me who don't know anything, because I'm wondering, how can you remember all of those things? I mean, I hear you gentlemen sometimes quoting stats that took place from before you were born. And I'm wondering how you remember these things, right? But, you know, it's good. I mean, I figure that you just have a photographic memory, have photographic memories, and you have that eye for details, because oftentimes I find it fascinating that you gentlemen can recall events that happened that most of us didn't even see that it happened in the first place, and you're recalling that it really happened. And you know, it's something else. I mean, I must admit, a lot of what you say in the next minute I've forgotten it, but it sounds so poetic when you're reeling it off, that, you know, I'm one of those who really stay to listen out for more. And I often wonder if athletes, especially the young ones, if their parents come to you, commentators, to say what it is about my child, because you seem to know everything about these athletes from the day they were conceived to when their parents went to the hospital, to when they were born, to which school they went to, and it's just amazing. And you're not reading, you're going from memory, right? And I must say, it's because of gentlemen like you that one of the reasons that I personally am proud to be a Jamaican, because no overseas sporting administrator, commentator, mentor, coach has anything on any of you, right? You're not at the top of your game in Jamaica. You're at the top of your game anywhere in the world. And it's gentlemen like you who are indispensable to people like me enjoying sporting events and actually understanding what is happening. You have not only brought the sporting prowess of Jamaicans to the world, but you have also built the Jamaican sporting arena by bringing the international standards to Jamaica. So we understand that we are not competing against Jamaica, we are competing against the world. And so, you know, the flyer said that tonight we had Dr. Clyde Morrison, Bruce James, Hubert Lawrence, and Oliver Elmo Harris. I know that I'm not just speaking for myself, but I would want to rewrite that. I would want to say tonight we spent the evening with Dr. Clyde Morrison, Dr. Bruce James, Dr. Hubert Lawrence, and Dr. Oliver Elmo Harris. So I just want to say to you, gentlemen, thank you for being there. Thank you because oftentimes people see the athletes and they don't realize that it's people like you who are the winds behind the athletes, who allow them to achieve what they have achieved. So I want to say on behalf of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston and all who else is listening, thank you, gentlemen, for spending the evening with us. I'm pretty sure we have a certificate for each of you. Do we DP Stuart?
Yeah,
okay.
we do have them. We do have them. Desmond was supposed to display them.
Okay.
Can we do it, Desmond?
There you go.
I'll do them individually.
Okay.
And I want to tell you, so this one is presented to Dr. Bruce James. I am pretty sure the next one is coming up. Well, we know who the panelists are. So I just want to say to you, gentlemen, thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and please continue doing it. And because of a comment that PDT Ralston made, I want to end by saying, Oliver Elmo Harris, I may be your newest mentee, because you and I actually, I think we both spent, not at the same time, but I think we both spent 5 years at Glenmuir. So I may just latch on to you as your new mentee to come into this illustrious group. So once again, thank you, gentlemen, for spending the afternoon with us. And I do hope
Don't go yet. Don't go yet. We have 2 more.
Okay, you have not displayed all of them. Okay, and for Dr. Hubert
and
Lawrence. Right?
And
we have one more.
And if these are gonna be framed, and we will endeavor to get them to all the panelists.
And I can promise you, gentlemen, that these will get to you, because guess what? I would love to meet each of you gentlemen in person. So if I have to volunteer to drop off certificates, use that as the excuse to meet you in person, then I will. Really great having you, and we learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to you, President.
Yes. Thank you very much. We now move to our Sergeant at Arms, DC.
Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead.
Normally, when we have these illustrious persons in our meeting, we extend an invitation for them to be a part of us.
Yes.
You never know. You have to throw out the net. You might catch a fish here and there.
Indeed. Yes. So our esteemed guests, we also extend an invitation to join us as members, and we can discuss that further. Where all schools are represented at our club. Yes, thank you. Yes, I now invite the Sergeant at Arms to proceed.
Good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, Kiwanians. I say gentlemen to admit the guests who I know. I don't know all of them, but I know at least 2. And we have Fortis in the crowd, but you notice we did not have any Fortis on the panel, but we had excellent people. I won't go over that. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. I have to say, as such, I noticed the president got mixed up with some titles this evening. And at least I thought you'd remember that this is what? That is ECC and not C and EC.
Yes.
I would spell them out to let everybody know. And then again, I did hear somebody calling IPLG DLG. I didn't know you awarded them, Mr. President, already. I mean, having just gone the election, I didn't know they had awarded the distinguished president status already, but that is news to me. And somebody else in introducing was saying about Herbert and not, it should be Hubert. Anyway, I'm sure by the time the presentations were made, everybody got everything straight. And I did note that Bruce did say we could blame things on COVID, and I agree. At one time, everybody would only say it's Murphy's Law. We can forget about Murphy now, and it's COVID is the scapegoat. I don't use scapegoat loosely here, but it is the reason for quite a few of the things that have happened. Well, my job, as usual, we haven't sorted out how we find people, but you know we can't find the president, so the secretary takes the blame, and he has to do all those. We have two short ones for you this evening, and it will be interesting that it's a monkey and a baboon I'm talking about, and they have a certain school that we used to use part of the cheering, but this monkey and baboon were among congregation at church, and they were sitting together. And the pastor said, generally, turn to your neighbor and tell him you're beautiful. The monkey looked at the baboon and laughed. And then he turned to the pastor and said, you tell him, I'm not telling him the lie church. And the other one, which I think should be acceptable, in Jamaica, they say we have more churches per square mile as well as more bars. Bars. Well, because of that, this bar opened opposite a church. And the church prayed daily against the bar business. Days later, the bar was struck by lightning and caught fire, which destroyed it. The bar owner sued the church authorities for the cause of its destruction, as it was an action because of their prayer. The church denied all responsibility. So they went to court, and when the judge heard them like that, he commented, it's difficult to decide the case because here we have a bar owner who believes in the power of prayer and an entire church that doesn't believe in it. Doesn't believe in it. Those are my two for tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I can't give him a laugh, President.
Well, I'm safe.
Yeah, my friend.
Okay. I invite DLG Willick to bring the notices, announcements, and interclubbing opportunities.
Thank you, President Richard. Good evening again, fellow Kiwanians and guests. Two short notices. Just a reminder, Kiwanis International Leadership Education Conference is being held virtually in Salt Lake City on June 23 to 26. Reminder also, on May 28th, we will be having our annual Barbie Pride at the Jamaica 4-H headquarters. Tickets are $1,800. Sales have been going fairly well, and we have so far distributed 850 tickets. And so far as interclubbing opportunities, we have a number of invitations. Invitation from New Kingston to attend their meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Invitation from North St. Andrew, part of Child Month, to attend their meeting on Thursday on the 20th, Toronto Caribbean is having a trivia night on the 21st of May. And we have a special invitation from the Kiwanis Club of Mandeville, who will be celebrating the 52nd anniversary on the 12th of June, of being a Saturday. That is, the meeting will be held on the 10th of June. Fellow Kiwanians, I guess those are your notices for this evening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. DP Stewart will now bring us the thought for the week before the termination.
Thank you, President Richard. This one, let me just say it first, and then I'll add something after. If you don't do the work, any success you have is temporary. And I'd like to point out that I got that one from Hubert. You know, I heard him on a podcast, and he made that point, and I said, you know, I must write that down. So I did. If you don't do the work, any success you have is temporary. And the other one I have, appropriate for the evening, it's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters. So those are my two thoughts for the week.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. We now move to our toast, and I ask everyone to raise their glasses to Kiwanis International, Jamaica land we love.
Kiwanis International, Jamaica land we love.
This meeting of the Kiwanis Club of Kingston is hereby terminated.